morning.
Morning.
Namaskar.
Namaste
Good
ji.
morning. Namaskar and Om Shanti. Thank you, Amir Saab, and thanks to the entire organization for having me here today for a talk which is so close to my heart. And I have been almost all over Delhi talking on this issue time and again. So today we have chosen I'd be talking a lot in the depth of what health is all about. And that is why I titled my today's presentation as Holistic Wellness. We are going to see it much beyond our physical well being. Share the slides. Are you all able to see the slides?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, doctor.
And how about the
Yes.
audio?
Yeah,
Audio also good.
good. Thank
Very
you.
good. It was
So,
good. It was good.
okay. So it's titled as Holistic Wellness Beyond the Physical Self. Now, it's been 25 years with dealing with cancers, cancer patients, looking at life from a very close quarters, looking at life and death from a various lens. And I think my perspective towards life has also changed as I have traveled this journey with my patients. So, my presentation would also share a lot of my own feelings, coupled with a lot of our big masters and sages who have said a lot about how we should be dealing with life. So, if we look at where we were, we have grown exponentially in every manner. Talk about science, talk about technology, religion, research, academia, and whatnot. We were like this. This is how we used to travel from one place to the other in our olden times. And now we have this where we can travel from Delhi to Bangalore in 2 to 2.5 hours. And now we are looking at making our holidays in the space. So it wouldn't be very far when we would be taking our vacations in different planets. If you look at surgery, this is how it was being done. This is how anesthesia was being given with ether and chloroform. And this is where we are robotic. So, robotic surgeries are something which is in vogue. And what you still hear is telerobotics, where the surgeon sits in one part of the country and operates on a patient in some other land. Technology, research has boiled down to the extent that we are understanding diseases at the DNA level, at the genetic level. And now here we have the artificial intelligence trying to cope up with the human brain, aiding us in our healthcare sector and in every sector. This is at the molecular level, but then at the end of the day, the $1 million question is what has happened to our overall well being? So, with all those comforts added to our life, to our lifestyle, there has been a baggage of diseases that we are carrying. So, when we talk about our overall well being, it is not just our physical well being, it encompasses emotional and spiritual well being as well. And that is what we call it as holistic health, the union of the body, mind, and the soul. In fact, when we talk about holistic health, this was something which came from our country. But then we lost ourselves in the dazzle of the Western healthcare system. And now probably we are realizing its importance back again. We look at success in different forms. Some people feel success is amassing money. Some people think it is getting some possession, power. So definition of success is different for every individual. Social media, look at the youngsters and look at the people from different strata. People validate their identity with external factors. They will look at social media platforms from where they would express themselves and also validate themselves. So the likes, the dislikes, the views which they gather gives them a lot of happiness and satisfaction. Look at our parties where we have so much of association with people, but you realize the smiles that we see, is that what is original? Or is it a plastic smile? Or is it a surface level charisma that we are being exposed to? And that is why I said a lot of us, many of us, in fact, who consider ourselves to be successful are often empty inside. And that's what today's talk would be majorly focused on. Right from our childhood, you'll find we are trained to measure ourselves on different scales. If you get good grades in your class or in your school, you're considered to be smart. If you have a high paying job, you're a successful individual. And if you're admired and you are adored by the society, you consider your life to be worthy. So all this while, what are we attaching ourselves? We are being taught to attach our identity to the outcomes. So most of our life is spent on trying to find out our sense of well-being through money, through our recognition, through power, and through physical pleasures. But at the end of the period, you realize all this thing is just temporarily satisfying. So the mirage of material success, where enough is never enough. So you keep chasing money, it becomes elusive, as if you are chasing a mirage or you are chasing a cloud. You keep chasing your success, you keep chasing your power, and you realize it's never enough. And that's what it is said. The modern culture only looks at happiness in the outer world. And we all forget this happiness is actually lie within us. So the true happiness only stems from within. And look at this concept, which is so prevalent in the United States, TGIF. So there are restaurants which are named as TGIF. And it stands for Thank God It's Friday, which actually means Monday to Friday, you're completely distressed, chasing your goals, running after things which really don't make sense in the long run. And you lose the joy of life. And it's only on the weekends when you feel that you are relaxed and you start feeling that happiness. So that's what spiritual knowledge tells us. Stop waiting for joy. It is already there, but it's just waiting to be noticed. So it's not a thing. It's not a thing. It is not to be chased. As I said, don't chase it, because the more you chase, the more it will run away from you. So happiness is nothing but the state of your mind. And that is what we have to learn to live. When we move away from external sources of happiness, that's the time when you discover the internal source of your well-being. And how does one explore and how does one experience it? When you take your journey within yourself, and that is what is your spiritual journey. And this, the only person who can do is the individual. So it has to be done alone. When we talk of well being, what does this word well being actually signify? Is the presence of positive emotions and moods, contentment, happiness, love, generosity, selflessness. So, when you have these components within you, you experience those positive emotions. And the absence of negative emotions, which is fear, anger, depression, anxiety, jealousy, frustration. So when there is absence of these negative emotions and you are flooded with the positive emotions, that's when you say that's what is actually considered as well-being. And these are your tonics for good health. So, positive emotions will always create a feeling of wellness, while negative emotions will always drive you towards diseases, ailments, and illness. But what's happened in the world of what we are in is completely disturbed because of the two C's, which I call it as the two cancers of our mind. And that is unhealthy competition, and the other is comparison. So, the dimensions of wellness that we always gauge ourselves with is physical, intellectual, emotional, relational, cultural, spiritual, financial, and environmental. But in the true sense, our natural state is always to be joyous, to be loveful, ecstatic, have gratitude and peace. That's the natural state of our soul. But with births and births, we have filled ourselves with a lot of negative feelings and vices. So when we talk of health, what does it actually signify and what does it mean? It is the dynamic state of our well being, which means when the mind, the body, and the environment they are constantly in a dynamic and a perfect state of interaction. That's when you call yourself to be healthy. So, to be, one should be in harmony with oneself, the environment, and also the one who has created us, and that is the Creator. So, meaningfully, it would mean you are connected quite usefully to the community and also to the universe. Often people think health is just what you are eating, so that makes you healthy, but it's actually what you are thinking and speaking. And that's why someone said health doesn't come from medicines, it is actually from peace of your mind, the heart, and the soul. So when you are peaceful within, when you are happy within, and when you are joyous within, you are in a perfect state of good health. And that's Charak. If you see what did he say? He said, when the body, mind, sense organ, and the soul, when the four components are at ease with each other, then you are healthy. But when one of these components is disturbed, then it's called dis-ease, and that's disease. So the actual definition of health is, which we call it as swasthya, means to be one's own spiritual self. And if you look at WHO in 1946, the definition incorporated physical, mental, and social well-being. But then in 2011, they realized the importance of another component, and that was spiritual well-being. Most of the diseases that we see is all psychosomatic, which means they begin at our mental plane. If you recognize it early, you can be away from the diseases much better. And what helps us is if you have a spiritual upbringing. Look at our human body. It is so beautifully engineered and it never lies. It's got such a beautiful system that it takes care of us without our acknowledgement. So, whatever diseases that we experience in our lifetime is actually a result of the mistakes that we make. And that is what the body keeps giving us alarm signals, which are wake up calls, of which pain and suffering is how it expresses most of the time. And there we carry ourselves with a baggage of lifestyle diseases. How does it happen? Too much of work, too much of stress, too much of tension. And with that, there is less of physical activity because most of our works have become sedentary, lack of sleep, and then resulting into our bad eating habits. And there we have the huge baggage of what we call as lifestyle diseases: diabetes, hypertension, heart diseases, chronic diseases, lung diseases, and topping the list is cancer. Stress, as we said, I think this is something which is a terminology which each one of us uses. But remember, this is the way of our life. It has become a way of our life, and it's unavoidable. What is important to know that it is important to have some amount of stress in our lives for a healthy growth. Else, what will happen? We'll all become very lazy, lackadaisical in our approach to life, and there would be no motivation to move forward. But then when you perceive it in extremes, that's when it costs on your health. And it's the factor of stress, the terminology, and this stress is perceived very differently by different people. What do we actually mean by stress is the gap between our expectation and reality. The more the gap, the more the stress. And that is why, the definition of stress is pressure divided by your resilience. So the more resilient you are, less would be the stress experienced by you. It's a feeling that you feel yourself completely out of control, and it takes a huge toll on your physical and also on your mental energy. Why are we so stressed in times of now? Various reasons. One, we have more engagement with technology than with people. So if you look at a family on the dinner table, you'll find each one of them with engaging in their mobiles. There are no conversations where we share with each other. So we have technology taking over with our joys, which has actually taken away our joys from our lives. We have more focus on success than the process of learning. And of course, the never ending aspirations, impatience in achieving, impatience in doing tasks, and a lot of disparity in our socio-economic fabric. And that's what Dr. Joseph also said. And he said, stomach ulcers are not the result of what you eat, but it's actually the result of what eats you, which invariably means it is your thoughts, it is the process, the thoughts which you continuously keep having is what eats you rather than your eating patterns. What does the chronic stress do to us? It speeds up our aging. It increases our risk towards various heart diseases. People become insomniac, lack of sleep, lot of digestive issues. There would be depression, anxiety. And if you look at a cancer patient, it has been seen and strongly scientifically correlated that it promotes cancer growth and progression. So let's have the Dalai Lama here in the picture. And he said, there are 2 days in the year where nothing can be done. One is yesterday and the other is tomorrow. So what we need to learn is how to live in the moment. And that is what is important. And something very beautiful which I wanted to share is, this is another quote, which is our Buddhist quote. And it says, if you can solve your problem, then what is the need of worrying? And if you cannot solve it, then what is the use of worrying? Now, how do we handle this stress and what are the ways that we can handle it? One is taking a positive approach. If you have an individual, a table which has a glass which is half empty, and you ask the individual, how does he interpret that particular situation? So somebody may say it's glass half empty. Somebody may interpret it as glass half full. And I'm sure you can feel the vibration. When you say it is glass half full, it gives you that positive vibration. And when you say it's half empty, it gives you that negative feeling. So having a positive approach to a particular situation is the trick that you can have, is a tip that you can have to actually handle a stressful situation. Never get over emotional. You can reframe the problem, and you can also take this opportunity to learn and relearn. This is again something which is very important, which we should all figure it out. We've been experiencing it. It says, don't judge each day by the harvest that you reap. Judge it by the seeds that you plant. So most of the time, we actually forget the little triumphs that we keep having every day. And in fact, the growth that we take, most of our growth is often invisible. So daily triumphs is something that we should always focus on, and these will lead to big victories in our life. Looking at the root cause of our suffering is actually the way we think. So mind is something that we all have to learn how to control. It is not something which is physical. Now, it's different from what you say brain. Brain is something which is physical, but mind is something which is intangible. And we create so many thousands and thousands of thoughts every day. But we realize 85% of these thoughts would actually rest in our past, and it's only 15% which rests in the future, and there's barely anything for the moment. So, what do we need to do? And that's what Arjuna tells Lord Krishna. Mind is restless, and it's more difficult to control than the wind. So, what's the root cause of our suffering? It's actually the way we think. And that's why someone said it's like a monkey. It keeps swinging between the past and the future. So if you can make your mind, if you can control your mind, it can be your best friend. Else it will be a worst of your enemies. And it can also cure a disease. And in this commotion of life, what have we all forgotten is basically controlling our mind. All that we do is take a lot of efforts in keeping ourselves physically fit. But when it comes to our mental fitness, that is taking a back seat. So what we should do and what we should learn is the art of controlling our mind. Irony. What's the irony? This is the mind which is creating such beautiful things which we are experiencing. You have computers, you have spaceships, now you have the AI technology. Such beautiful technological advancements, where have they been created from? It is the mind. Irony is, this is the mind where we have so much of difficulty in controlling. But then, if you train this mind, it can actually change your world around. And the intellect can become sharper, and you'll experience the magic in the world outside. And that's what Gita says. The main ingredient of success is the serenity of mind. So when the mind becomes calm, it becomes focused, it's peaceful, you experience that divinity, and it's directing. How do we do this? So this is controlling the mind and de-stressing yourself. You can do it through yoga, you can do it through exercises, we can do it through meditation, through music therapy, through various prayers. Now, prayers and mantra, I'll take each one of them. Prayers and mantra. Now, when you talk about the chanting of mantras, it actually means mantra. Man means the mind, and tra means the freedom. So you're freeing the mind and making yourself stronger and healthier. Now, meditation is something which a lot of people talk about, but I really don't know how many of us actually know how to do meditation. So, if we learn the art of meditation, it'll make our lives so beautiful. It's derived from a Latin word which is medri, and it means to heal. Through meditation, you can deepen the understanding of your life, and it also helps to change or beautify your thoughts, feelings, and also your actions. Scientifically, what did the scientists see? When people are into meditation, the EEG, the ECG have shown that there is alteration in the waveform. The ECG becomes more calmer, the heart becomes more calm, the blood pressure settles, the muscle tone becomes better, the breathing and the heartbeat all slow down. There is change in the structure of our brain, and the happiness and the well-being center becomes thicker and also stronger. So it's a great stress buster. It self-disciplines us. People experience a beautiful and a healthy sleep pattern. And also it improves and increases your pain tolerance. When you engage yourself in exercises and physical activity, you experience a sort of happiness and joy. And also, it's a great de stressing measure. What happens? So, when we do a lot of physical activity, it increases our blood flow, and that stimulates also the nervous system. And there's increased production of certain hormones and endorphins, which give us happiness, which give us joy. It clears off our negative thoughts and brings on a lot of positivity. Yoga. A lot of us talk about yoga, but what's actually the meaning of yoga? Yoga or yug, or it's called the union, it is the union of mind, body, and the soul. It is the science of right living and the science of the mind. Great role in spiritual rejuvenation. Whatever inherent or innate potential we have, it helps us to unleash. It increases your resilience, improves your decision making skill, and also your ability to accept success and failures in life. Why is sleep so important? You know, a lot of people think that sleep is a luxury. No, but a good night's sleep is as essential as oxygen for our survival. So it's not a luxury, but it's a necessity. It rinses off all the toxins from the brain and repairs the damaged neural system and also allows the memory to be integrated. It increases one's productivity and creativity. What are the important tips to control? One and the foremost is we should all learn to accept our failures. And that's the most important thing in our life. So, good and bad things will all be our life's lesson. And the second is time management. That's very important. We should learn to manage that whole 24 hours, which each one of us is given, and also balancing one's own lifestyle. In all this, where does spirituality fit in? Many of us don't really understand the word spirituality. But to be honest, this is the essence of our life. Spirituality doesn't mean leaving behind the world being aloof from your family, quitting family, and quitting equations. Spirituality actually means taking a journey within. It is understanding your purpose in life and also understanding who you are in this entire universe. So the spiritual lessons don't really ask you to be a monk. It actually asks you to be awake. And the various values and the virtues that you imbibe through these lessons, it makes you a person with substance. And it's so beautifully said, in a world full of takers, you actually become a giver. So, in the Vedic scriptures, this word spirituality stands for taking a journey within yourself, and that unfolds the inherent divinity which is within all of us. And that is why it says, illuminate the light within, and then you would experience the magic outside. So beautiful. It says, one who looks around is intelligent, but the one who looks within himself is wise. So when we take our spiritual lessons, it actually turns our gaze inwards and we start valuing ourselves. And we don't speak with our profiles, but our presence speaks for ourselves. Now, where in the world where we talk about science, where does spirituality actually fit in? So, if you look at science, it only helps you to understand the outer world. And who creates science? It is humans who create science. And it helps us to perfect our life to a great extent. But then, spirituality actually helps you to understand your inner world. It ignites your soul and keeps you happy and joyous and gives you a lot of strength to fight every odd in our lives. And that's what spirituality would mean, understanding your soul. Now, the soul which has come into through so many births has transformed into a different form, which is called soul illness. And that's why we're all suffering. Anger, ego, greed, lust, fear, attachment, jealousy, insecurity, revenge, hatred, low self esteem. All these are components of what we call as soul illness. But what we really need to know is this is not the true nature of our soul. The virtues of our soul originally, what we call it as spiritual health, is peace, joy, love, bliss, purity, wisdom. And that's what makes us more focused, mentally strong. It silences our actions and also increases our efficiency. And that is what is we try to achieve through our spiritual lessons. Now, the transformations that we really need to know to keep ourselves healthy is ego to be converted into humility. And what does this word ego actually mean? It says edge God out. And in times of now, what everybody thinks is it's me, me, me. So the word I and the me have really become a great killer of humanity. So we need to change this ego into humility, transform your stress into calmness, anger into compassion, the hurt into forgiveness, and worry into caring for each other. Expectations should be transformed into acceptance. Holding on to things should be allowed to let go. Self-respect, comparison to be converted into self-respect. Attachment to be converted into love. And people who master this inner world are the ones who would always experience success and happiness. A little onto our diet and how does that work on our well-being? So if we eat our food respectfully, we will be away from a lot of miseries in our life. So eat food as medicine. Otherwise, you'll have to eat medicine as food and never eat food as if there is no tomorrow. So there has to be a true harmony and balance with the body's requirement and the food that we take in. If you see in the natural state, our body majorly drives its energy when it is alkaline. So optimum health is when the body is in the alkaline state. And a lot of our functions, day-to-day activities, yes, would require some component of an acidic milieu. But then when it becomes too acidic, that's the time when we experience a negative health. And our lifestyle, stress, and the various environmental factors, this is what we attribute all these factors for causing acidic an environment. Body in the alkaline state would make our immune system stronger, digestion better, one feels more energetic, one feels calm, and the sleep patterns become good. But then in the acidic state, one gets really flustered, mentally disturbed, the immune system gets pulled down, and we become prone to various infections. So consume a lot of fruits and vegetables. That's going to get a beautiful alkaline environment into your system. So 75% of the system works on the alkalinity, while 25% with an acidic milieu. And the rule of the thumb is try and avoid taking processed foods. Anything out of tin or anything out of can is unhealthy. Processed foods and preserved foods and junk foods, please be cautious about. They are low in nutrition. They are difficult to digest. These are chemically enhanced food. They fill you up, but then they would leave you hungry. That is why they are called, they taste good, but they are thieves for us. And they also contain what is called obsogens, and that leaves the individual obese and fat. It has a lot of hidden sugars that hooks our brains, and that's why we keep craving for them. And also messes with our body's sugars and the hormonal system. Refined foodstuffs, they are low in fibers, they also have low nutrition values, and they are more fattening. So friends, never take your health and well-being for granted. It's so important. And early morning when you get up, what we need to do is we should focus on positive things in life. Good relationships, good friends, work, house, everything matters. Wealth also matters, but someone said it so beautifully. Wealth should be like a breeze. It should come from one window and should go out from the other window. But what's important is friends who make you rich, and it is not wealth always. It's important to balance spirituality and worldliness. And when we balance the two, we get a lot of peace and happiness. In other words, sciences and spirituality are like two wings of a bird. So if we want to be moving in a balanced way, the two things have to run in tandem. And to end my talk today, this is a beautiful proverb which I picked up. It says, I curse the fact that I had no shoes until I saw a man who had no feet. What does that mean? It is so important to celebrate life and also to have gratitude for all the gifts that we have, which we take it for granted. And that is eyesight, food on the table, work which you have to fulfill your responsibilities, and the 2 feet on which we walk and see the world around. So the message is be good in real life and not in the social media. Nothing is more peaceful than having no interest in others' business. Choose discipline over motivation, consistency over perfection. And above all, your journey is yours alone. And that's something very beautiful which Steve Jobs said. Your time is limited. Don't waste it in living someone else's life. And that's the secret of longevity. Thank you so much. Thanks to the entire organization. Thank you, Amar Saha. This was the talk, the series of interviews that we had. I'm sure you would recollect the COVID days where we had so much of time and we discussed such beautiful experiences with various cancer survivors and cancer experts from all over India. And this was for our program called Arogyavani, which was the Prime Minister's mission. And then we moved on to the second part where we talked about various different facets of life. Thank you once again. And that's my social media link. Anyone who wants to visit my link, we post a lot of awareness programs, and I'm sure you would really benefit out of them. Thank you and namaskar once again.
In our fast changing world, we are seeing a lot of us are not paying attention, especially the youth are not paying attention to food habits, and most of the time they're eating food from outside and not home cooked food. So what is your suggestion for them on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, what they should do or how we should go about? Yeah, I'm sure you just touched upon processed food and all those things, but still, if there's anything more you would like to add, it will be really nice.
Yeah, I think, it's become, everybody says that I don't have time, but this is something which is very, very incorrect. Each one of us has those same 24 hours. So
Absolutely.
it is balancing that time which is important. And you should remember that food has a great impact on the way we perform, the way we in our disposition, and the way we think. कहते हैं ना जैसा अन्न वैसा मन.
Bilkul.
So if you are eating food from outside, think of the vibrations with which the food has been made. When commercial preparations are being made, it is basically money. When the same food is cooked by a mother, you'll find there is so much of a difference. So the energy that you get from a home cooked food will never be the same that you have it from outside. Preferred that you change your lifestyle. Think how we can spend a little more time in our kitchen. Be closer to nature. The more you take natural foodstuffs, the more you will remain protected. So there was somebody, who said, it is not the speed with which you are going to run your life. It is the direction. It is the goal to which we are going to move. So if you are just trying to pace and compete with others, I think that you need to put a full stop. And there you need to rethink and relook into your life. And food is a very important component. It is unfair to say that you don't have time for it. I would say, and let's reframe the lineup and relook and rethink how we can invest some little more time on ourselves in cooking that cooking that food for our own health.
How much time do you think we should allocate for our health on a daily basis or on a weekly basis? What would be
That's,
your recommendation?
you see, that's what, people, the definition of health has to be very clear to all of us. What does health actually mean? It is not just what we are eating. I said it is not just what we are eating. The greatest component in our health is what we are thinking, what we are speaking. So the process is on all the time, whether at work, whether at home, even when during sleep. So it's not just the physical aspect when we talk about health, it is the mental aspect. So that we need to learn. And that's why when we take our spiritual classes, spiritual training, they tell us every hour, check your thoughts. It's called traffic control of your thoughts. So every hour, check your thoughts, see whether it is negative, and immediately transform into a positive thought. So the moment your thoughts become positive, you'll start feeling energetic and healthy. So food is one aspect, physical activity is another aspect, but then I lay a lot of importance to my thoughts. So that one needs to focus on. If your thoughts are positive, you will feel healthy. Even people do so much of fasting, no food for 16 hours, but they still feel so healthy and energetic. So it's all in the mind.
Again, one more related question to our health plan itself. Do you
Right.
recommend any specific tool or anything like that which is available for each one of us to follow and, adhere to, like that, tools, resources, or anything which you would recommend for different age groups also, maybe? Yeah.
Well, I have never used any tool, but yes, I practice in my own form, and that is the morning meditation. I think all the youngsters should learn how meditation is to be practiced, and then physical activity, yoga. And I
Yeah.
think that it helps you to stress control, very important. And of course, being happy and joyous in every situation of life, even if it's negative, even if it is something which is not really palatable, one should reframe that problem and think that yes, in a bigger lens, it's probably for your own benefit. So God looks at us in a very, very different perspective. We only look from a very short period, but He has a bigger lens through which He puts us across. So great faith in the divine plan. I think that should keep everybody more steady and happier.
How long would it take for one who adopts spiritual practices like mindful meditation or observing the thoughts and so on? Would they see a remarkable change in him or herself in a week's time or so? That's the question from Ranjaniri.
Well, it depends upon with what dedication and devotion are we practicing. Each one of us says, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But whether it has been done earnestly is what is important. And these are practices which, when you keep on doing and when you master it, 110% you will experience and reap the benefit. I'm there as a classic example. My life has entirely changed. And your definition of lot of perspective on life will change. So that's important is keep faith that these practices work magically. That's why it is said, illuminate your light within and you'll see the magic outside. So never feel, and time is not the question. So you have so much of time for yourself. God's given us such a great time span. We all say life is short. No, life is not short. It's actually we understand the value of life much later. So the important is at whatever juncture of your life, you get an opportunity to connect with your spiritual lessons. That's the time to begin. You can rewrite your life again. Never think that it's going to be a waste. It's going to be a journey which will be much, much more beautiful than you would have had experienced before you came into these lessons.